Greetings, and welcome to my challenge run of Universe at War Earth Assault. This challenge will be me attempting to beat the entirety of the main campaign whilst not building optional units. What counts as an optional unit for this challenge? Any unit that is not literally physically required to beat the game. So for example, if a mission says you must build a detection drone, then I must build a detection drone if it's required to beat the map. Certain mission objectives you can actually skip because they're not flags required to actually beat the mission. They're just there as a objective for some reason. But if you skip it and you beat the actual flag required to finish the mission, then you successfully finish the mission. But if, for example, I have to build a unit in order to circumvent, say, a gap, in order to fulfill the objective to progress the map, and there's no other way, and it's literally what the game forces me to do, then that will not count as a failure. That's the game absolutely 100% forcing me to build a unit to continue the mission, and that is okay. However, in the spirit of the challenge, should such a situation arrive, I will then suicide the unit while causing minimal damage and progression otherwise. That is in order to keep the spirit of the challenge. What is a unit? Anything that is under the infantry, vehicle, or aircraft queue will be counted as a unit, as will builders. So for example, Glyph Carvers, Constructors, and Architects are all going to be counted as builders for the purposes of this challenge, and thus as a unit. There is an interesting situation with the hierarchy, that is, everything of theirs is actually a unit, in a way. Walkers are a unit, Reaper drones are a unit. So, for the purposes of this challenge, Walkers and Reaper drones are not counted as units. The reason being is they are the hierarchy's version of production buildings. They are their version of buildings. They're there to gather you resources, they're there to help you build your infantry and such. It is the equivalent of the Novus vehicle assembly. So as such, that will not be counted as a unit, which means Walkers and Reaper drones are completely fair game. And of course they will be instrumental in this run. How do I think this is going to be doable? Why do I think this is possible? Heroes. Heroes are very intentionally broken. They're supposed to be overpowered. They're supposed to be the leaders of your army. Much like in Warcraft 3, that is the game. Heroes are Universe at War. As such, I think I can abuse the powers of heroes in order to make the missions doable. Heroes have one of the best traits in the entire game, and that is they have quite a high amount of health regen. As a result, the primary strategy is going to be to do some damage, run away, heal up, and then run back in to go and do more damage. This is going to be the majority of the gameplay. Each race has ways to help speed up hero healing, and that will allow me to keep on doing it, make it less grindy, and finish the mission quicker, thus less chance in being completely overwhelmed. The humans have General Peasant, or General Moore. Actually, currently he's Colonel Moore. He has his own built-in heal. It heals for a good chunk, it might even be 100%, I've never fully tested it that way, but it's a big heal. Very helpful, very powerful, incredibly strong. The Novus side has Constructors, and Constructors will enable you to repair your heroes. For the majority of the campaign, you do control Mirabelle, actually maybe the whole campaign I believe, and she can be healed with Constructors, as can all the heroes, but primarily you control Mirabelle, and you will be healing Mirabelle quite often with Constructors. This is a very powerful thing to do in general, let alone in a challenge run where I'm not allowed to build optional units. The hierarchy have Sorcerers, which can repair Orlok's armor. You control Orlok for nearly the entire campaign. He's the only hero you do get to play as in the campaign, actually. But there are a couple of small sections where you play without him, and that's just because you're controlling army for macro purposes. And whilst I can't build Sorcerers, I do occasionally get given Sorcerers, which allows him to be repaired, which is very, very, very obviously powerful and helpful. Lastly, the Masari, their Architects, do count as healers. They can heal any damaged unit, including hero units, which will be used to its maximum potential, I assure you, as is absolutely necessary. So, right here you see me just going through the mission. You can see that I'm primarily using the hero to do the fighting, and that is because I need to keep my units healthy. The hard mode is slightly different to the easy and normal difficulties, in the sense that I don't know the exact differences, but I know enemies hurt more. They just hurt more. I don't know if that's because they micro better or if they straight up have bigger numbers. I feel like they just straight up have bigger numbers. So, because heroes regen and most regular units do not, I will be using heroes to do the vast majority of the work and keeping my units for desperate pushes or holds as and when is necessary. This is very obviously the best strategy that I can use. Losing units is big. I can't rebuild them. Other primary strategies are going to be turret creeping, which is the act of building turrets to secure an area and then slowly building more and inching forward with said turrets. That way I can proceed down the map or through the objective while still being under the cover of turrets, having a retreat point, and turrets very nearly function as units. Very nearly. They can do damage, they can take hits for me. This is very helpful, and this is a strategy that I'll be using. Also, at several points in the campaign, I will be building what I'm going to call fodder buildings. That is buildings I'm not intending to use for the purposes of buildings, but to simply draw enemy fire and stop taking hits from the enemy. If they're shooting on my buildings and not my hero, then I can do damage whilst not receiving meaningful damage. One interesting advantage that's actually quite funny, and I quite enjoy it, is I drown in money. I just have a lot of money. Turns out armies are expensive, and when you don't have the ability to build an army, you have a lot of spare money, particularly as Masari, since they essentially have infinite money. So this means I'll be able to afford absolutely anything and everything that is not a hero. This is very good. There are certain times of the hierarchy when I do not have money, because walkers are very expensive to kit out and to build. But this is a very small trade-off for the fact that I get to use a walker. Walkers are very, very, very powerful. So, I'm using the hero to take the most of the hits, and I'm taking units with him as and when I deem it necessary. And I'm not going to show the entirety of the raw footage. I'm showing you the tutorial bit purely to give me some time to explain and to just showcase a taste of the strategy I'm going to be employing. However, I will skip over vast portions of missions because you don't need to see me building 30 turrets. You just don't. Instead, I will skip over those bits, maybe show a few seconds of clips here and there to show that this is what I'm doing. I'm building a bunch of turrets, and yeah, that's how I'm going to do this. And I'm just going to commentate on the difficulties and the things that go well and some things I discover. Because I learned a lot from this challenge. I really learned a lot. I thought I knew quite a bit about this game. Not that I'm particularly good at it. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you I'm fantastic, because I'm not a great RTS player. I'm very okay. But I learned a lot, and I want to share some of what happened with you, because I've not experienced bugs quite like I've experienced in this before. To be clear, the only restriction is I can't build optional units. I will abuse absolutely anything and everything else that I can, because it turns out it's quite difficult to win with barely anything at your disposal. And that's the thing, disposal is the key word. There is not much that's disposable. You can dispose of buildings quite a lot because there's a lot of spare income, but there is not much disposable in terms of units. Hero health is disposable as long as they don't die, which is the primary way to fail, to be quite frank. It's not the hardest campaign intrinsically, but this challenge does add a lot of difficulty. So, let's find out if I can beat Universe at War Earth Assault without building optional units. Let's go! So, for this mission, it's quite simple to start with. I have to escort the ambulance. When you're playing this mission, it's very easy to forget about the ambulance. You realise that your units don't quite move with it, and it just gets picked off. That's the main way that I'm going to fail this mission. I've even failed it on normal before that way, just because of carelessness, which is how most people, to be honest, are going to lose most campaign missions. You're going to be careless, or you're going to lose track of your hero, and they're going to eat it. And that's okay, that's a thing that just happens. However, I am quite careful in this mission. I simply go forward with General Moore, and I pick off the units in advance. I keep the infantry near the ambulance to both take hits and to pick off any enemies that are going to come after it. And it's quite a simple start to the mission. However, in this mission, I already get a taste of how difficult it's going to be and how easy it's going to be to mess up. Let's skip ahead to the part that actually matters. One thing I would like to mention that I have not is I am not going to be abusing saving in the middle of a mission. It would make it too easy. I could see anything that was coming my way and it would be against the spirit of the challenge. I will save at the beginning of missions, because that is okay. I have not yet played any actual mission, though gameplay has happened. And I will make some safety saves because the game has some bugs. Actually, one time I was playing the Masari campaign on normal, and something happened that I've never ever seen before in this game. I soft-locked, and the way I soft-locked is unbelievable. I simply could not finish the mission. I could kill every enemy, and I destroyed the main win condition building. The game simply did not progress, it just bugged out entirely. So I had to replay the entire Masari campaign again, which did fix it, fortunately. So I will make some safety saves, purely to prevent the game from just crumbling up and just dying for no reason. And that's okay, that's still within the spirit of the challenge. I'm not breaking the game, I'm actually preventing the game from being broken. So now I've successfully escorted the President to Fort McNair. I'm running forward General Moore towards Woolard, and I'm running Woolard back to my group of units. I'm keeping them all together. I cannot build any units here, so I need to keep every single thing alive that I possibly can. I'm going to try and use my heroes to get chip damage in. Every little bit counts. Every tiny shred, every inch of damage counts. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm doing my absolute best to ensure that they get as much damage done before my units have to fight. Unit losses are permanent, hero health is not. This walker's just running at me, and I'm not too worried yet, to be honest. I'm just not. It's not particularly scary. After all, I'm just thinking, this is the tutorial mission. It can't be that hard, even though I don't get to build units. Well, human units are not very good. They're not fantastic. They're not supposed to be. You're supposed to feel like you are underpowered. You're meant to feel like you're getting overwhelmed by these aliens, and Novus arriving is gonna save you, basically. That's how it's supposed to feel. It's supposed to feel like you're getting absolutely munched, and then Novus comes along and saves you. This is where I realise I make a key error, and I'll explain what that is very shortly, but this is a very armoured walker. And I'm thinking it's not that bad, but I see that there's repairs going on, and enemy healing is very tough, because I can only do damage in bursts for most of the campaign. Enemy healing is often a bigger issue than enemy damage, because I need to make damage that sticks. Sometimes I simply cannot make damage that sticks. That's just how it is. It happens that way. So I'm preparing, I'm trying to keep all my units clumped. You can see I move forward with Woolard a bit just to get a bit of damage in. I'm trying to really min-max this. Now I'm starting to worry a little bit. I'm thinking I have to take down these saucers. Saucers are just going to give him a lot of health. That's obviously an issue. I'm trying to hit the hard points first while keeping in range of the turrets. And now that the saucers are in range, I'm now trying to focus down the saucers to limit the enemy health. However, I realise that I'm just simply not doing all that much damage. Actually, I don't focus on the saucers here. That's an error. Don't know why I didn't. That seems a bit silly. I think I just wanted to rush it over with. But then I realised I made my first critical error. The walker can just insta-kill units by walking on them. That's a very big mistake on my part. That's something that I need to avoid as much as possible. I just kind of feed a bunch of tanks, and I'm getting really overwhelmed here. And I'm not able to build these units, so I'm trying to preserve units, I'm trying to keep them safe, and that is my mistake actually. Because Novus now shows up to bail the humans out, what I didn't realise is the human army, because you lose control of the human army, actually runs away. And that means that I'm losing efficiency, because they could have been doing damage Story-wise, yeah, the losses would matter, but for me it doesn't. If I lose all my units but keep General Moore alive there, that's fine. That would still count as a pass. So I'm gonna realise this error, and if I had failed, which, spoiler alert, I don't, I would have rectified that, and I'd have run all my units in and just had them do the absolute maximum. So Mirabelle's coming in, blah blah blah, we know how this bit goes. General Moore doesn't realise they're there to help, despite them killing the enemy. I don't know why they didn't pull an Alien versus Predator, and you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. But I guess he also doesn't realise that that's the case. He does say it doesn't make sense, so whatever. General Peasant making a call there. Mirabelle comes in, blah blah blah. And now we're gonna see how the fight goes. Now this is where I see how difficult this is going to be, because I very nearly lose Mirabelle here in the second mission, which is supposed to be a tutorial. You do, as far as I'm aware, get infinite Novus reinforcements, but I didn't realise that until partway through, where I kept on getting reinforcements, because I did damage quite slowly. Part of it is that the enemies might be tankier, I'm not sure, but because I take more damage, I have to retreat more often, which means I get less shots in. That's obviously going to be less damage overall, just due to that alone. But I am controlling Mirabelle. And something helpful is I am on the PC version, so in the bottom left I can see my hero's health whilst not being focused on them. That's going to help me to keep somewhat up to date with how they are doing. But you can see already Mirabelle is bleeding. She's down to a third, 25%. Now, and this is where I realise, the humans are retreating! I should have just fed their units in for free damage, because it doesn't matter. So I have to retreat Mirabelle. She's so low. She hit maybe 10% there. That's really... This is where I realise already, oh. At least the humans aren't shooting me. That's fine. But I'm using the reinforcements to just do some damage whilst Mirabelle heals. Maybe I shouldn't have, because I didn't know that I was going to get infinite reinforcements at the time. I might not even get reinforcements, but I just wanted to be absolutely sure Mirabelle was safe. But she nearly died! This is the tutorial! This doesn't bode well. However, I am able to siege with all these units and just overwhelm by sheer numbers. I'm able to take out the hard points, and then the walker simply goes down. It's not particularly difficult. I didn't need to use Mirabelle all that much. In fact, the optimal strategy is to probably not use Mirabelle at all, just to avoid any chance of her dying. Because units can die quick. It can happen. Stuff can just die. But, nevertheless, I do finish the walker, and thus, the mission. For this mission, I'm going to introduce you to a very basic strategy. And I mean it's very basic, but it's quite effective. I'm going to henceforth refer to this as Resource Gatherer Scouting, or Resource Scouting, or something to that effect. Novus's ability to gain resources, what they do is they send out these little drones, and said drones will go around and just gather resources automatically for you, and they get rebuilt for free if they die. Now, a side effect of this is they give vision. So I'm going to build absolutely maximum resource buildings, even though there would seem to be no point, because I can't spend all that money. But what it means is these resource gatherers will go all over the map. They go for the nearest stuff first, which is good design, that's how it should be. And they'll clear that out first, and then they'll slowly go further afield. This means that they'll gather resources from further afield, and they'll give me vision. Because they will be going into the fog of war, I'll get to see enemies, and that will help, because scouting is something I'm limited in. I have to either risk units, I have to take hero health, or I have to physically go to a place where I might not be needed, and I might get attacked elsewhere. So the resource scouters very much help with that, and that's a strategy I will be employing. This mission is very simple. The humans are shooting on me, but they're essentially irrelevant. All I have to do is reinforce these supply locations. The enemies are not particularly threatening. I don't need to show you all of the fights. I'll just show you the first one to show you how it goes. This mission is very, very, very basic. There's really nothing to it overall. It's just a matter of sending Mirabelle, making sure she doesn't die, and I'm just building a bunch of flow conduits for vision. The AI doesn't target them an awful lot, so it's nice vision, it's nice scouting, it enables me to reinforce if I really need to, but it's a very simple matter of using Mirabelle's abilities and simply shooting on the enemies until they die. This is not a complicated mission. To round out the mission, we simply have to stop a couple of already damaged walkers running at our base. It's so incredibly basic. Simply wait for the EMP to charge, do the EMP to stop the enemy from being such a threat, and then we simply EMP them and disable them and shoot them. Not complicated, I'm not going to walk through it. There's very, very little to it. It's a bit of kiting, running back and forth, using what few units I have left because this is the end of the mission to get stuff done. Always throw every last unit at the final objective for obvious reasons. It's completely inconsequential. Future Kyle here. Actually, slight error. It's a gravity bomb. Not a gravity bomb. Yeah, a gravity bomb. Just a black hole thing. Super weapon. It's not actually an EMP. I'm not shooting. That's my mistake. I was thinking of something different. This is simply a gravity bomb that blows up both walkers. Even easier. Even more basic. Absolutely pointless. My error. This mission is what I will refer to as a micro mission. Missions where I am not supposed to build anyway because I don't have builders, I don't have any unit production, I simply cannot create any units. It's a normal mission for all intents and purposes. I won't go through the entirety of these missions, I will simply talk about any issues I had or any difficulties or any deaths that I have, because I do die quite a few times on certain missions, and I won't go through the entire thing, I'll just mention difficulties and what have you. This mission is essentially a normal mission. Something I do realise is that you do get infinite reinforcements. I didn't know that, and I didn't realise it at first, but I do realise partway through that I simply have infinite units, so I just keep Mirabelle safe for the most part and just run my infinite units at them. I do have General More helping. Something important to note, actually, is allied heroes are completely invincible. They cannot die. That's very helpful and somewhat abusable in certain missions. You can run in, they'll help you, because they tend to stick to your heroes in a lot of maps where that's the case. There's exceptions, but that's typically how they work, and as a result, I can use General More to help me out. He's not the strongest in terms of raw damage, but invincible is invincible, and I have infinite units. So I'm going to speed this section up, and you can just see that I'm just running in fodder units over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until everything dies. Not a complicated mission. I do lose Mirabelle once due to my carelessness. That's a perfect example of how I'm going to fail occasionally. Mirabelle died. Just kind of sucks, just kind of how it is. Errors happen. But the mission overall is very easy. That's an error on my part and not the mission being particularly difficult. This next mission is very interesting to play. I don't know how entertaining it is to watch, but to play it is very, very interesting. So the idea is you're building a portal and the enemy is trying to stop you. That's the story here. I'm not likely going to lose to losing the portal. I'm probably going to lose to losing the hero, because obviously you would use the hero to defend as much as possible, because if the portal dies you lose anyway, so you might as well go all in. What am I going to do about this mission? There's a bunch of optional ways of gathering more resources, which would usually prove to be very helpful. Usually that would give you way more units to work with. Problem, I can't work with units. So instead I capture the ones nearest to me, or the ones that I practically can capture, and that is because I might as well. It's a bit of vision. It may or may not distract the enemy. And what I'm going to do with this mission is I'm deliberately going to wait to build the portal. The reason being is because as soon as you finish building that portal, the flag raises to start the mission. That is not what we want. We don't want the enemies to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead in advance and capture the turrets around the map that you're supposed to capture later. Later they tell you, oh, there's these turrets, we should help the villagers. I'm going to capture them in advance because I don't need the money anyway. I have infinite money once I've built my resource centers. So I'm going to go around, capture these, and hopefully the turrets will give me an advantage in fighting off the waves of enemies. So that's simply what I do. I go around and I capture these things, and I set up as much as I can. And this is the first mission in which you're going to see me using fodder buildings. This is buildings that I build purely for the sake of sponging hits from the enemy, because I still can't build turrets. I'm disabled from building turrets at this point in time. This is difficult. The turrets would make this mission completely a joke. It would not be difficult at all. These laser turrets help, but they're not massed, and they can die quite easily. But they are helpful. They are very powerful. They do a lot of damage. They're hard to defend in the sense of you need to commit stuff to it, and they can be picked off fairly easily, and they're not the tankiest. They're not exactly squishy either, but they're not the absolute best, but they are pretty damn good, and I'm going to take everything I can get in this run because it's what I need. That's all I'm doing right now, is I'm going around and capturing all of these turrets. So this is the point where the mission now properly kicks off, and I'm not just doing the macro stuff required. I'm building all of these fodder buildings to start for the assault that I know is coming. And very shortly, actually right now, we see a walker. This walker is a terror, and this is going to be the biggest issue of this map. The walker can just completely roll over me if I'm not careful. So I'm doing damage of Mirabelle, I'm running. I'm doing damage of Mirabelle, I'm running. It's going to be a bit of a grind. I hit some nice rockets, but here's the reason why I'm building all of these fodder buildings. I'm not even powering them. There's no point. I can't build from them. Why would I bother powering them? I'm going to get assaulted over and over and over and over. And utilizing the Constructors, I can repair Mirabelle whilst also defending. Constructors can repair each other, which allows me to go quote-unquote infinite. But this is going to be the difficulty of the mission. And it's not until I get partway through that I realise, oh, at least one of the human villages has to survive. I didn't realise that until partway through, and I'm like, oh, because I was just going to ignore them for the most part if I was in the area. Sure, of course I would defend it whilst I'm in the area. But then I realised I can't do that, and that makes this mission a lot harder. However, being able to heal and repair Mirabelle is incredibly, incredibly powerful. It brings her back into the fight very, very quickly, and as a result of that, I can get around the map to be to the places I need to be, because movement isn't actually the issue in this map, it's simply the time taken to heal and regenerate. Constructors save us a lot in this. I'm using the shield form of the, I forget what they're called, but the big walker things. I don't really know why. They should be shooting, ideally, because building damage just doesn't matter that much to me. I've got fodder buildings, I can repair them if needed. I should be doing damage of them so that I can get Mirabelle back into the fights quickly. And here we see another walker, and I'm just trying my utmost to do whatever damage I can while I can. And I'm just shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting, running, healing, shooting. This is the main difficulty of the mission, because Mirabelle, she hurts, but sometimes her snipe shot misses. It's an incredibly powerful ability. It's absolutely bonkers. But it sometimes just misses for no good reason. I'm constructing the home portal, and I'm building fodder buildings as much as possible to distract. But here I am with Mirabelle just trying to shoot as much as possible. The turrets I captured earlier really helped a lot with this walker, and it just made it so Mirabelle takes much less damage. And if Mirabelle takes less damage, she can deal more because it's more time before she has to go and repair. However, my base is getting shot in the meantime, and whilst I have these fodder buildings to protect, I still have to go and deal with the units because the constructors cannot keep up on their own. It's also a good opportunity to heal off Mirabelle because she's not taking damage really while she's defending the base. I can use the constructors to repair her, so I kind of serve a dual purpose in defending and also healing at the same time. It's very efficient, and efficiency is king when you've got a walker running at your base. Obviously, realistically, this walker won't take over my entire base, but it will do damage, and it could take out the home portal, which is obviously a mission fail. I did start the mission with some constructors and some own bots, which is why I was able to capture, and this is why I'm able to build fodder buildings. The fodder buildings have already proven exceptionally useful. They also distract from my constructors being taken out, so it was the absolute correct call. Here I am again, just sieging with Mirabelle. It's now relatively easy. The legs have been taken out, so it moves slower. That's a really big deal. Usually it's not that important to take out the legs, because you can just kind of focus down the walker. But reducing the speed in this mission is helpful for multiple reasons. One, it doesn't get to my base, so it gives me more time to just siege away at it, which is factually a good thing. But in addition, it means that I've got more time to heal Mirabelle before it reaches, which means more total reps of Mirabelle shooting it, which means more damage overall. It's just very nice to have the legs taken out by both my turrets and Mirabelle's rocket ability, because walker legs being taken out does slow them. This leads to me simply wearing it down, and I'm still continuing to build fodder buildings. I'm continuing to just throw crap in the way so that the enemies have to deal with it. Once again, Mirabelle's just kind of running in to do some chip damage. Very slow. This is a big issue. I'm playing with fire with Mirabelle a bit, but it's not too bad. However, the walker is nearly at the base, but something that Novus and the hierarchy can do that the Masari cannot is they can heal the heroes whilst the heroes are fighting. With the Masari, if you start healing a hero, they stop acting. That's pretty aggravating, but it's the balance thing, I guess. But fortunately for Novus, I can just heal with Mirabelle and have her shoot. So I think I out-regen the walker. Not 100% sure, but look, it's just shooting on my fodder command center. I don't care about it that much. This is perfect. This is a brilliant example of why I build fodder buildings. It just keeps Mirabelle completely safe. I take out the walker, and that's that. The rest of this mission is simple. I'm simply sieging and repairing over and over. I'm speeding this up many multiples of times because there's just not much to commentate. It's very basic, completely straightforward. You don't need to be commentated. The only important thing to note is that I hit the plasma turrets first on the walker so that I can eventually out-heal the damage taken, and I finish the mission without failing. So far, the challenge is completely doable. I've not had to build a single optional unit, nor have I come close to having to yet. For this mission, I finally get to introduce you to our second best friend. No, our third best friend. The best friends being, of course, the heroes and the builders that we do get. Our third best friend, finally, oh finally, turrets. Yes, we finally get to build turrets. Oh my god, turrets are a godsend. And this mission is not going to be friendly, even with the ability to build turrets. Redirection turrets are very powerful. They do some damage on their own, quite a chunk as well. They hit ground and air, they hit absolutely everything. On top of that, if an enemy fires projectiles, they have a chance to redirect it to shoot at the enemy. They're so powerful, and it's nice to finally have ways of defending without having to move Mirabelle. I have some units to play with, but I'm keeping them protected. And what I'm doing is I'm going out in advance with Mirabelle, focusing on doing some damage with her, and then while she's healing, I'm getting some buildings going. Once she hits full, I rinse and repeat the process. At some point in this mission, General Moore joins us. I get to research the patch, which gives an 18% health bonus to Novus units and structures. 18% is a lot. I don't know if it applies to the heroes. I'm going to assume it does, because it feels like it does. But either way, it's just helpful. 18% more health, even if it doesn't affect the heroes, just gives me more leniency with units and buildings, and particularly constructors. An annoyance in this mission, something I did wrong, which I don't know is even possible. I should have run for some walkers that are near the far left of the map early on. That's what I should have done. That way I could have used General Moore to help me do damage to them and then finish this objective. Because once you finish this objective, General Moore just goes elsewhere and leaves you alone, which is annoying because he is helpful. Damage is damage. He's a body to face tank for you. That's obviously nice. But I don't do that, I mess up a bit, but I still go through the mission. I'm building tons and tons and tons and tons of turrets, as you can see, because what else am I going to spend my money on? There's so many resources on this map. I'm trying to do resource scouting, but there's just so much on the map that I'm not getting anywhere with them, and I'm focusing primarily on building turrets to defend the base. They have monoliths on this map, so they kind of teleport to my back lines and they start shooting at buildings, and it's aggravating, but I use my small handful of units to help keep them at bay, and my turrets obviously do a fantastic job. I build an EMP structure, because that's going to be helpful later on for the walkers that I know are coming, which I just didn't think to siege and use more. I didn't. I really didn't, and I feel stupid for it. But either way, it works so far. I take out all of the objectives. It's not a particularly hard mission in that sense. I solo it with Mirabelle because General Moore helps. He has Marines. He himself helps. Now that that's done, he goes away and leaves me alone, and that's when I'm like, oh yeah, I have two walkers. Mirabelle gets stuck behind enemy lines, and this is when I decide, right, I'm going to build a forward base. This is going to give Mirabelle a safe spot to retreat to, so I can siege, run away, heal with constructors, and if the enemy aggroes, I have some turrets to help me do massive damage and also act as a buffer. If the enemy were to ignore my buffer and walk right past it, then they're going to get a hell of a lot of pot shots in the way. My constructors get harassed and I really panic. If I lose these constructors, then I'm going to struggle. But I do escape, and I'm able to repair, and I get this forward base up. Now, a problem I face is the walkers have repair chambers. That means that if I don't kill off a hard point entirely, I effectively did 0 damage. Now, I really focus on trying to get rid of these repair chambers, because then I can win the war of attrition, because that's what this challenge is for the most part. Mirabelle says, great, the defenses are down, but they're not. I have access via the lower bridge, but there's still turrets up the upper half of the left-hand island that are constricting my movement slightly. So the defenses aren't fully down, but that's okay. I get a nice EMP, and I get a lot of damage in. I'm still healing, I'm still building up. And I'm going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Eventually, I decide to build this forward base even further down in the bottom left corner. And that will hopefully allow me to aggro the walker. This is at the point which I'm going to slow down the video to 150% as opposed to the 600 it was before, because this is where it gets quite interesting. So I'm now looking to build a forward base on this little island here. I don't know why I'm attacking with Mirabelle rather than building. Oh, I'm EMPing, that's why. So I EMP, I get a lot of damage in. I secure the repair chambers this time. I take out the mass driver cannon. I don't really know why, because they don't use them. But I take it out. Damage is damage, I guess. Now that this walker can't repair, it's limited. It's very limited. Mirabelle almost dies And she slows down for some reason there. I'm not 100% sure why. I think it's because I had multiple selected and she copies the movement speed of the field inverters. But either way, she does live, fortunately. I get the repair going. 4 Constructors repairs heroes very, very quickly, actually. And this is the point, I think, where I just decide I'm going to build this forward base. I run Mirabelle back in. Why aren't I building this forward base, actually? Why am I waiting so long? Maybe I wanted this first walker to die so it couldn't take me out on construction. But I am taking out chunks of it at a time. Why aren't I building this forward base, man? I think I just must have wanted this first walker to go down. But the Constructors are a lifesaver. This forward base, I didn't actually need to build the base in retrospect, but it gave me the confidence to do this, and that's an important thing. Something that's undervalued in games is doing something that allows you to do something else. Even if you didn't have to, if you remove the risk, it enables you to make that play, and then that alone is intrinsically valuable. Just knowing something is or isn't the case. So now it looks like I'm finally bringing everything over, all of my units, because my base, I've noticed my base is simply not under attack. There is a building limit for each type of building, which is why I'm selling some, and you'll see me sell some turrets in my base, I believe, unless I already did that. But now I'm going to build the forward base down south, and this is where things get very interesting. So I start with a flow generator, because that's what's going to make my turrets have power. And then I start building turrets. Something interesting is the enemies... These walkers don't really aggro as much as you would think that they would. They have a very short tether range, especially for such a massive unit. And yeah, it's very interesting, but field inverters have massive range. Actually, units just have kind of a lot of range in this game in general. But I'm sieging, and these turrets have massive range as well, so the turrets are very helpful. The walker's a bit out of range for the redirection to happen, but that's okay. I'm able to repair with Mirabelle and out-regen the healing. The walker's focusing on Mirabelle, who is just out-healing, so it's not a problem. And this walker is now going to be made short work of. That's not particularly difficult. I'm building more and more turrets, though, just for the sake of safety. If I have to run away, I've got turrets. They're very, very powerful turrets, as I've already mentioned. This walker is now about to go down, and now brings forth the last walker. The problem is, I have to hit the turrets or the walker. I can't really do both, and if I hit one, I typically aggro the other. It's a very awkward situation to deal with, and this walker is actually just sat in my way and ruining my pathing, which is awkward. So I try and build another flow generator just to see what will happen, and this walker has a much larger aggro range. I do not know why. I cannot fathom why. By the way, look at how much money I've got. Just drowning in money. But you can see there, the splitter turret, or splitter turret, whatever it is actually shooting Mirabelle from a mile away. So I'm trying to out-repair on this flow generator, but I realise instantly it's not going to work. So I sort of retreat back a little bit to try again. I think I lose a constructor here. No, I don't. But the walker now de-aggroes, so I'm like, okay, I found its aggro range, so I'm going to build right on the edge of its aggro range, and then hopefully I can draw it into the turrets, which will blow it to smithereens. It seems to be quite effective so far. I'm not currently getting shafted, so I'm trying to build my flow generator as far away from the enemy as possible so that it doesn't aggro to then power my turrets. I start selling some turrets because I hit the build cap, and then I can build them more forward, which is perfect. That's where I want them. And I'm hoping now the aggro strategy will work. I don't know for a fact, but Mirabelle's at full health. I'm repairing some units just because I can, and now I decide this is the go time. At least I think I do. Is it now, or do I build more? I think I play it safe and build more. I play it very safe in this challenge because I'm not saving mid-mission. If I lose a hero, I go to the start. That's really annoying. It's really annoying. So I play it safe. So I want to be quick as possible, whilst being as safe as possible, while still being in the spirit of the challenge. Now I've got a massive amount of redirection turrets. These things hurt. If the walker just walks over them and crushes them with its feet, then I'll retreat Mirabelle and default back to the original strategy of back and forth and back and forth, but I don't think it will. AI isn't ideal, it doesn't just walk over your turrets like that, even on hard. So now I'm going to go with Mirabelle, and it's going to aggro me just about here. It's another assembly walker, it does have a repair chamber, which I immediately snipe. I'm trying to just keep it aggroed, so that it walks into my turrets. Once it comes into the turret's range, I think it should stay aggroed. I think that's how this works. But he's not biting. I don't understand why. So I'm just really trying to pull him like, come on, over here, boy. Over here, over here. And then I decide, right, I'm going to build another juicy building. Look at this juicy building. You really want to aggro that, right? Nope. So I just build turrets even further forward, and this is turret creeping. This is the textbook definition of turret creeping. I'm gaining a little bit of ground each time, almost like trench warfare, and now it aggroes. Finally. I have Mirabelle on the front line for some reason. I should retreat her and repair her. I take a very gutsy snipe. I do an EMP so I can maximize the use of these redirection turrets. And now I'm repairing Mirabelle, and from here it's a very simple waiting game. The field inverters took some hits, so I start to repair them. They re-aggro, but they have absolutely massive range. And now my redirection turrets are going to start sending the odd shot back at the opponent, which is fantastic. That's what they're there for. Healing Mirabelle now, sacking everything else. I'm looking for upgrades. That's why I'm clicking about, but I don't need them. Now these turrets are just going to blast this walker to smithereens. Mirabelle is looking healthy. But it was very interesting how the aggro worked and how I had to work around that. But now the mission is over, the walker gets completely shafted. I thought it might bug out and that because Mirabelle was already at the uplink, it might not count the flag. But fortunately that did not happen. It worked properly. This is what made me worried. I had to walk around it a bit. But it counted as successful, and that was that mission. God damn, that was a sweat fest. That took forever. But I was successful. I am not even going to commentate much on this mission. You are not supposed to build. It is a micro mission. It's very slow. I'm just going to skip straight to the end and tell you I did it. I just did. Because you're not meant to build units anyway. It's obviously possible. There is no point messing around with it. I did this mission, another successful mission, an easy one under the belt. At long last, we are on the final mission of the Novus campaign. This is the first mission that I was incredibly nervous on, and this is the first mission that could result in the challenge changing from no optional units built to the minimal amount of optional units built. This mission is incredibly intimidating and scary. This is a mission in which multiple walkers will walk at you. Funnily enough, believe it or not, walkers walk, who knew? And these walkers will be quite powerful, they're heavily kitted out. Usually it's not too hard a mission, it's not the easiest, and I can definitely see some people getting caught out, but overall it's normally not that hard. However, not being able to build units means you can't be in all the places you need to. That makes this tough. Something I will be using in this mission is the Founder's ability to create own bots from scrap, because that is not accessing the infantry, vehicle, or air unit build queues. So this is a way of me actually being able to create units from nothing, which is completely fair game. That's within the rules of the challenge. This is something I'm going to try to do, and this will also enable me to make my resource gatherers go further afield quicker, because he destroys the nearby resource dumps, so buildings just get completely turned into nothing and I get some own bots. These own bots aren't overly powerful, obviously. I don't get that many of them, but for some reason this mission bugged and I wasn't allowed to research. I don't know why. Usually you are 100% supposed to be able to research. And at the time, I was questioning myself, am I insane? Can I just not research? Normally you can, but but it bugged. So I'm playing this without research. I'm like, alright, bring the challenge on, let's go. I'm allowed to build turrets. Obviously, this is going to be the key to success. It's not the first two sets of walkers that worry me too much, although they do worry me. The first thing I'm doing is I'm taking out the arrival site to hopefully limit reinforcements that come in. I don't know if that does anything, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to use the founder to create the odd few units here and there in the hopes that that may tilt the edge in my favour. But it's not the first two sets of walkers I'm worried about, although they are a threat. They are absolutely 100% completely a threat. However, it's the science walkers that have me sweating. Science walkers have radiation cascade. This is essentially a massive wave that will crawl across the map that will utterly destroy anything in its path. But they need 3 of a specific hardpoint to do that. This is where my plan of taking out one specific hardpoint that's necessary for the radiation cascade is going to be vitally important. I know roughly where the walkers are going to come from, so I build turrets in advance in these locations, but I'm so worried. These science walkers have me sweating because they could just wipe out my base instantly, and if the home portal dies, which is on a ridge up on the top right, then I also lose the mission. I cannot lose any hero either. This makes life tough. I'm trying to just take out the reinforcements, the little guys on the ground, while slowly building up turrets and own bots, and I'm using Vertigo to just take some chip damage here and there, but this is going to be tough. The walkers are just steadily advancing, and my micro is not very good, the hotkeys aren't suited for me, so I'm just trying to build turrets as quickly as I can, which is fairly slow overall. The main 2 tactical positions are this area you see right here, and also there's an area near enough in the dead center of the map where I'll also be building a wall of turrets. I'm now running Mirabelle for the walker, because I took out the arrival site, and I took out most of the guys on the ground. These walkers don't seem to produce units, so I'm not too worried about the Reaper drones. If I can take them out at some point, then I will, but I'm not overly concerned about them. I'm experimenting with what the founder can turn into own bots and what it cannot, and it turns out certain things will not turn into own bots, but other things will. So I'm building up little own bots here and there. I'm not using it off cooldown because my micro is not that good, but I am using it, and hopefully these units will give me an advantage somewhere down the line. A definite error is that I'm not building the EMP, nor am I building the black hole bomb, which I should be. They are absolutely 100% things I should be building on this map, and I am not. And that was a very big error. This is going to be a close mission, win or lose. Either way, it's a scary mission. I do have the humans. They have turrets and a few units. That really helps. It's not the best. Again, humans aren't the most powerful, but it helps. It gives me time to build. It distracts them from hitting my hero. And they're just very helpful, and I'm very grateful to have anything on this map. Even just an Apache or 2 helps a bunch, an absolute bunch. Turrets are sieging down the walkers. They're incredibly powerful. They do a lot of damage, but the walkers don't stop. They will walk over my turrets and insta-kill them once they reach them. However, I've got nothing else to spend my money on, so I just do it anyway. Even if they die, who cares? But my units are aggroing from a mile away, and I'm worried about Mirabelle, and I'm looking at the other walker. But I've got many more turrets down there, so I'm okay. But I think I lose a couple of units here just due to poor micro and a poor decision. These losses hurt. The turrets, I'm not microing, I don't need to. I need to keep an eye on my units more so, because turrets can be replaced, whereas units cannot. I finally build an EMP structure. Finally, so late. I back it up with a flow conduit so it has power, so I can use it. An EMP will buy me a lot of time. Time is of the essence. And here, you can just see my turrets getting absolutely mullered. I did, however, retreat my constructors, and the turrets I built in the lower part of the map still shoot this walker as well, so I quite specifically positioned them as such to get double value from them. I survived the first wave. This is not a problem. I survive it, absolutely no issues. other than losing a bunch of turrets. But I have time to rebuild. Fortunately, walkers aren't the fastest, but walkers do ignore terrain for the most part when moving, so that's how they make up for their fairly low speed. But they do move slow, so I do have time to rebuild, which I do. And not having access to patches really hurts. Make a few more own bots. That's another 6. That's something. It's a few shots to take at least. And I have this science center that's not powered for some reason. I don't remember why. I think I was just building it to access something else. But either way, I'm building up own bots ready for the later pushes. I'm building up turrets. And I'm desperately looking around for resources, enemies, wherever the walkers are coming. Now it's habitat walkers. Habitat walkers, again, not the most threatening. And I just start to siege of Mirabel, doing the classic run back and forth while building as many turrets as possible. Something I could have done better is I could have built more command centers, because those actually cannot be walked over by walkers. And so it would path block them, which makes them have to walk around and not crush my turrets. Mirabel's taking some pot shots, and I'm deliberately keeping her out of range where possible. And just taking pot shots while she's repairing. This is the right thing to do. The more I chip it down, the less I need to worry. And what I've done is I've built the majority of my turrets in the southern part of the map, and I'm using the heroes to siege the walkers coming in from the left, from the western part of the map. And this is because I've got less turrets, and if I've got less turrets, then I need to make up the damage elsewhere, which is what I do. And I realise, oh, these walkers have no anti-air, so Vertigo can just chip away to his heart's content. He's just going to slowly but surely weaken it, which removes this walker from the map near enough. Vertigo is king for this part. He doesn't do masses of damage. Vertigo is a very okay hero. I don't think he's particularly great. He is a stealth unit, so in PvP he probably has a lot more advantages. But for the campaign missions, he's just okay. Just very, very okay. It's just occurred to me that I skipped out on a mission, which I must have lost in the recordings. It's the one where you have to gather the portal pieces, but that one was very simple. I managed to clear that mission up. That's an error on my part, but it's 100% doable. You can go and snipe their arrival site immediately, and then they can't rebuild, and then you just have to do the map as normal while clearing up units. It's not too hard. You just build some fodder structures, and that's that. This wave of walkers is not a big issue. Vertigo chipped down this one successfully. The other one is going to walk into a billion turrets and just get blasted. The humans are helping as well, for whatever that's worth. I send Mirabel in to help out Vertigo, just to ensure that this western ridge is covered. And now I'm just building even more turrets. And I'm still annoyed that I can't research. Why can't I research? It's annoying. It's really frustrating, but it is what it is. And at this point, I just assumed it's a thing I can't do by default. I finally decide to build a black hole structure. Finally, after so damn long. Why did I wait this long? I don't know, but I did. So now I'm building this, and the walkers are coming in. These guys are going to get blasted to hell. Not a big deal. This one is already dead. The second one is going to follow very quickly. My unit's going to take some chip damage, actually, because this walker came at a slightly worse angle, and my turrets aren't aggroing very well, but it still dies. Not a big deal. Now for the really scary part. Now I'm looking at science walkers, and these things can one-shot my base if I don't take them out quickly. This is worrisome. They will one-shot all my turrets. I think I'll still do it, but I am still sweating. I haven't been keeping on top of my founder cooldown, but that's okay. The own bots are just there because I can get them. They're not the most useful. But what I want to try and do, because you can do this sometimes, is you can bait the AI into using the radiation cascade on a flying unit or something. If they waste a radiation cascade on one of their walkers, then I can ignore it, because it's got a massive cooldown. It's like another super weapon. It's got such a big cooldown. But if I make them waste it, I don't need to worry about it. The humans, my units, the turrets will just take it out naturally, and it won't nuke everything. So That's what I try and do. Fortunately, Science Walker's moves very slow. A patch that would be very helpful is there's a patch for radiation resistance, which is what I could access, but I haven't put in the patch for some reason. It might be bugged, I don't remember. But here I am trying to shoot with Mirabelle, and I'm keeping my distance, because if that radiation cascade hits point blank, I'm just going to die, and I want time to avoid it. Taking a minor gamble in not looking at Mirabelle, but that's okay. I get a few more own bots. I've now got a fair army, actually. 17, it looks like, which is a good chunk. Actually, I've got a couple more from the founder. And I'm just trying to siege the one on the far left first, which is a mistake. I should probably be sieging the one on the far right. But I run Vertigo in. The Science Walker can shoot Vertigo, but I'm thinking he can get some good damage in at least. And if I can take out one of the horns, I'm safe. Vertigo is chipping away nicely. I'm looking around. I'm mobilizing my units now, because this is the final wave. And oh dear, Vertigo's low. I do retreat Vertigo. I'm running Mirabelle in. And it's looking not too bad now, but keep in mind, the radiation cascade goes maybe a quarter to a third of this map in distance, vertically, and probably about a quarter horizontally. It will destroy most, if not all, of my base if it reaches, so it's a very nerve-wracking mission. And I was really, really, really nervous. I remember it. It was terrifying. I hit the turret build cap. This is a good thing. It means I'm maxed out on turrets. I've kept on top of that very nicely. I'm using my units to chip away. The own bots are there to take some shots for Mirabelle. And I do take out one of the horns. I should have just ignored this walker now. It has no more radiation cascade. But I focus on it and I don't know why. Why would I do that? I'm flabbergasted. Why am I doing this? I don't know. I should just ignore it. But for whatever reason, I do decide to focus on it more. I continue to repair things. I actually repaired Vertigo here because I want to use him more. My units are now going to just destroy this Science Walker, but I'm not looking at these other Science Walkers. What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing? I send Vertigo to take out another Science Walker, which is something. I'm not mobilizing the Founder. He's a melee unit. There's not much point. He can't hit the high up hard points. I'm using him to hopefully build more own bots, but even that is not ideal. I am mobilizing my units now, realizing I can ignore the walker. And Vertigo's taking pot shots. Everything's moving in. This is looking good now. I'm less nervous, so I'm thinking, I'm looking at all these turrets. If I can just take out these horns, I'll be okay. There is a patch which lets all your vehicles move through the flow network. That would be kind of handy. But or is it just a regular upgrade? I forget, but it is a thing. But I just can't... Why can't I do research? The game is a bit buggy, it seems. Although at this point, I know now it was a bug, but I did used to think that it was... At the time, I thought it was intentional that I couldn't research. I'm looking around to scout, not really finding all that much, but I do get a few more own bots, that's nice. Mirabelle died! Yeah. Mirabelle died. After all that, I just lost track of her and she died. Back to the start. We've already seen this. This is 1000% speed. Looking at it in the replay or the recording, it looks like Mirabelle just ate the radiation cascade and died. Yeah. I play much better this time, and interestingly, I can research this time. The game had bugged. I don't know why, but it had bugged. I'm guessing it didn't drop the flag from the previous mission, and as a result I couldn't research, but I can now, so I can get my 18% health bonus patch, I can do all sorts. It's much, much better this time around. I play better, I get a black hole bomb, and I also get the EMP, I believe. So, I now take out these habitat walkers. We've seen this, I'm not gonna walk through it, there's no point. I take them out, I'm using the same strategy, but I'm just objectively stronger this time. And now I'm going to retake a shot at these damned science walkers. So I'm going to employ a similar strategy, but this time I actually have the gravity bomb, which is going to be instrumental. So I've reduced the speed to 200% so we can just see how I change my approach this time. It's going to be much, much better, I promise. This is going to go much better. I'm not going to lose Mirabelle in a stupid way again. I'm just not... I don't know what happened. I'm certain it was a radiation cascade last time, but I played better this time. Having the research upgraded also helps. 20% health is just a lot of health. Well, it's 18%, but I'm going to say 20 for simplicity. Science Walkers again. Right, so, mobilize the units. I've got Gravity Bomb and EMP. What is my approach going to be? Well, I opt to Gravity Bomb the one nearest to me, and I EMP the one that's the second nearest. That is to deal with the one nearest, then the second nearest gets stalled, and the one furthest away I've got the most time to deal with, so I'm leaving that till last. That is the correct strategy. I'm going to attack, but I'm going to be a lot more cautious. Mirabelle's going to come in, snipe once. Oh no, she doesn't have snipe, sorry, I must have already used it. She's going to do some damage, but I'm watching like a hawk. If I see that radiation cascade coming, I'm retreating. I've even taken the radiation damage reduction patch for the sake of safety. Now I've taken out the main hardpoints, I can ignore the bottom one, so my units should be slowly moving away, which I believe they now are. And I'm not even using Vertigo, I believe. I'm playing utterly safe. I'm repairing Mirabelle to full. I'm now keeping her at base. I am not messing around anymore. I'm using the units that I have got, and I'm bringing all my heroes to the back of the base to be safe. I don't want to lose that way again, man. I don't want to. That was such a sucky way to lose it. It felt like I could have avoided it. I definitely could have. Targeting the main hardpoints. I'm even ignoring these units, which I probably shouldn't be, but I just want to get rid of the main hardpoints. No, I do actually turn on them. That's the correct play. And I'm just keeping my heroes as safe as I reasonably can. Take out a hardpoint. I think I took out the main hardpoints on all of them at this point, so I now run Mirabelle in because there's no risk of radiation cascade. I get a snipe off. I take some pot shots. The units are just chipping away. I don't know if Science Walkers can crush units, actually. I think they can, but I'm not 100%. But again, I'm running Mirabelle away. Safety first. She's only at 70%, so she's barely taking damage, but I'm playing it safe. I don't want to fail this. So now my vehicles can move through the flow network. That's handy. I EMP that walker just because I can, and now I'm going to hit the one that's on this ridge. Mostly because I've got turrets there, and I can protect the turrets so they can do a lot of damage. That's the primary strat. I think Mirabelle's sniping once, and then she's going to run away, or is she going to face tank a bit? I don't remember. But either way, it's safe play. I realised my error, and the writing is on the wall now. I win. I'm going to spoil it now. I do, in fact, win this mission by sheer not playing badly. I didn't play bad, so I won. Who knew? So finally, we now find out the answer to, is it possible to beat the Novus part of the Universe at War campaign without building any optional units? The answer is yes, it is 100% possible, and not only possible, but it's not that difficult. I died 3 or 4 times due to carelessness rather than being pressured into it. They were unforced errors for the most part. It's entirely doable, and actually the founder building own bots barely even mattered. That just didn't impact the game that much, so even if that was considered to be cheesy, it's still doable and entirely possible. Boom. We got it. GG. Now for the hierarchy. Stay tuned for part 2.